Hello, I am sleepy, but nonetheless, I have decided to embark on a little bit of an experiment because I think there are too many music genres. People just keep seemingly coming up out of thin air with these bizarre, ultra niche, hyper specific genres that just don't serve any real purpose in communication. If you're at a party and somebody asks you, "Oh, what sort of music do you listen to?" You're not gonna reply, "Oh, I listen to post-Yugoslavian shit gaze." They're just going to probably say nothing and walk away. It doesn't make sense to me why there, by some accounts, 2,000 or more genres. So I have decided to make a list of pretty much all the genres that I could find, which totals to about 1,824. A lot of it seems to be hyper specific to particular regions, so I'm not sure if there are actual legitimate justifications for these different genre tags existing, or if they could just more easily be summarized by saying, "Oh, they're traditional music from Tuvalu," or whatever, instead of having all these hyper niche genres saying like, "Oh, well, on this, particular corner of the island, there were actually 10 people who composed music using bone flutes and ass bongos, and therefore that has to be a new genre of music and not just something, some band or whatever existed." I'm rambling, so I'm just gonna listen to fucking music instead of ranting more. So I have, out of my list, picked 10 completely random RNG things to listen to, hopefully throughout the next few days. And yeah, let's go with the first one here. Hard step. I assume this is going to be dubstep, but even more annoying, which you can probably tell by looking at me is not really the kind of music that I enjoy or want to listen to, especially when I'm tired. Yeah, I'm already thinking this might be a bit of a mistake, but yeah, it looks like it's a derivative of drum and bass, which doesn't sound like it's... There's like no releases under this. Okay, it's already some hyper niche thing. Alright, so I have found here an album called Exorcise the Demons by Source Direct. Obviously never heard of it, but I'll flashbang myself for a moment just to say that my headset that I used to use to listen to music is broken, and while I wait for a replacement to arrive, I am currently using an old gaming headset, which might actually work in favor of hardstep, as I feel like this might be the ideal device to listen to such a genre. So I guess I'll report back in an hour or so. Extremely generic beat, but these synths are actually pretty cool. I like that it's like a very statically lo-fi production as well. It's probably increased by my shitty headphones, but it's kind of cool so far, to be honest. I do find it ironic that so far, for a record that is under the heading of drum and bass, so far 4 minutes in, the least interesting thing about this music is the drum and bass. I like the kind of creepy synths. I just wonder if it'll go anywhere with it. Alright, well, the first song was actually way different than what I was expecting it to be. Mostly pleasantly surprised. I don't think it justified the long runtime, but it was neat. I just opened up my Instagram and the first thing I see is I'll block a bitch on Rate Your Music. It's kind of menacing at points. I kind of wish it leaned more into that, but there's still some pretty interesting explorations in there. Alright, so I'm back with my opinions on Hard Step, and it, of course, wasn't what I was expecting, which was a good thing. I definitely was pleasantly surprised, but I feel like it kind of occupied an awkward middle ground between not having a dynamic progression that culminated in a lot of sort of excitement or engagement, although there were, of course, a lot of points in some of the songs, like pull up the track list here, like Mindweaver and Technical Warfare, that I quite enjoyed. If it was a bit more mellow, I could foresee it being something that I would like to throw on like in the background while I do other things, like, you know, study. Or if it was a bit more exciting, then it would be something that I would throw more into like my active rotation. So I'm not really sure when I would want to listen to it again, but while it was on, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I'm also not sure what made the music hard, and I suppose I don't know what the step suffix means, since, you know, as with most people, I mostly associate that sort of thing with dubstep, which that hard step record very much was not. I also felt like the least interesting parts of it were, ironically, the drum and the bass part. The things that felt more interesting to me were the sort of, like, the synths were really the flavoring, were really the spices that kept it interesting. The sort of drum and the bass part felt a bit too copy-paste, too generic, too predictable. But there were some parts where the different sort of sounds that they were mixing together kind of occupied these strange little grooves that I found quite captivating, quite interesting. But yeah, at any rate, we'll now move on to the second genre, which is... So it seems like it's gonna be some like Ye Olde stuff, not like what I was imagining, like Michael Jackson and that sort of thing. So this will definitely be a new experience. I've encountered a problem that I have with all this genre inflation. In looking up traditional pop, I found a list of 100, and in only one of the 100 is the main genre only listed as traditional pop. Everything else is just a mixture of different primary genres. And this one pure traditional pop album I could find was a self-titled Polish singer, I guess, I presume, Zbigniew Wodecki, from 1976. Not a clue what I'm about to get into, but I guess I'll check it out. Ooh, I liked that. It's kind of some like almost like prog rock flares here sometimes. Okay, alright, this song kicks ass. Dude, this fucking rocks. Again, another pleasant surprise. The vocals, they didn't really do much for me personally, but they by no means detracted from enjoyment of the record. But I thought the instrumentals were really interesting. There were certainly some points in which they had quite a bit of like personality, some nice like subdued flair, and yeah, overall it was quite an enjoyable experience. So I'd say so far this genre exploration, we're 2 for 2. And now next up we're on to Musica Lubnania. It's Arabic pop, apparently, which I can't say I'm too much looking forward to this, but, you know, so far things have been going well, so hopefully this will be another one. Alright, so I've just finished listening to, let's try to get this as, oh, YouTube autoplay is happening. Okay. So, I've just finished listening to, and forgive me for butchering this, Firkat al-Ard by, nope, that's the artist. The record is Ognaya. I think I might be a bit racist, not because I completely butchered that pronunciation, but because I was assuming Arabic pop was just going to be some, you know, ringtone music or something, but out of the three that I've listened to so far for this experiment, I think I can handily say that this has been the best record. I realized that, like, some of it didn't sound too special to me outside of the world of sort of like traditional Arabic sounding music, but when it's at its best, it's like genuinely quite captivating. I listened to not the version that's on streaming, but one that was that I found on YouTube of the sort of original track list, and I think I'm glad that I did, because there was some, I don't want to say edgy, but there was genuinely, in the translated lyrics, some like pretty provocative statements regarding, and again, I'm very ignorant to this sort of thing. I don't know what was happening in the late 70s in Lebanon, but there's a lot of genuinely poetic lyricism about a specific sort of kind of idealized patriotism, and not so much as the Kool-Aid drinking kind of nationalism. This sort of nationalism seems very much as a sort of melancholic longing for a better homeland. There's a lot of expressing a lot of like love and melancholy for the state of whatever was happening at that time, which again I don't know, but I feel like if nothing else, this is obviously an effective piece of art, because it makes me want to learn more about what was happening to produce such emotionally charged and emotionally evocative music. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this. I think Intezerni and the title track were especially quite captivating, and this is something that I probably will go back to and learn more about and listen to more with like a greater context. But yeah, I'm actually quite happy that I gave this a shot. Alright, so I am back and ready to take on another genre here. After the last one, I'm more optimistic to take on whatever is going to be next. Okay, we have Malaguena Venezolana, which it looks like is in my folk category, so I assume it's going to be some sort of Venezuelan folk, which is interesting. I expected most of the genres to be sort of in the sort of folk realms prior to charting everything out, so this I am sort of curious about, because I of course am completely uninitiated, which you can probably tell by my accent and lack of pigmentation. Alright, so it looks like I'm going to be listening to Cantos de Venezuela by Soledad Bravo, and it looks like it's all been arranged by one Chucho Sanoja. They didn't really have on my streaming service the proper, I guess, track listing that the original 1974 release had, but it looks like they had some sort of 2016 version. So I just basically added those songs into a playlist to sort of get the original track listing out of it. And it's looks like it'll be a short and hopefully sweet 36 minutes and change, and maybe if I can find some lyric sheet, I can practice my Spanish a little bit. Alright, so I just got done listening to Cantos de Venezuela by Soledad Bravo, and although it wasn't really for me, I can definitely see it meaning a lot to a lot of people. Soledad has such a strong voice, like an incredible voice, very powerful, but yet strangely gentle at the same time. It was very stripped back with just her and a guitar or two, which at some point the guitars were pretty cool. Like I think it was Cantos de Peon. Yeah, they were doing some really like rapid, tight chord strumming on guitar that was like kind of impressive in a subtle way. It was definitely a singer focused record, which usually that's not really my bag, especially when obviously I was working off translations, and also because it was like an older sort of production. There are some points where I guess sort of like the sub bass frequencies kind of caused me to turn down my volume a bit because I do have a bit of hearing damage, so that was another kind of minor gripe. But if you're interested in sort of especially like Latin American music, very like stripped back singer-songwriter type things, then I'd say give it a shot. You'll probably find a lot to enjoy in it. Wasn't really for me personally, but still definitely worth checking out. So next up on the list is Balkan Brass Band. Unlike the others, I think I know what to sort of expect from this one. I'm not a typical connoisseur of the brass bands, but let's give it a shot. So we've got what looks like is a Romanian band. Fanfare, no idea about Romanian language, and that is Fanfare Sio Carlia. The record Iagberry, with the subtext "The Gypsy Horns from the Mountains Beyond." So let's give it a shot. Alright, I just finished listening to Iagberry by Fanfare Sio Carlia, however you pronounce it. And I mean, it was alright. It it didn't really do a whole lot for me personally. Not really the kind of music that I'm into. Not really something that I get a lot out of. But I did appreciate there were points where it felt kind of like Latin or like Middle Eastern inspired. So I do find that interesting when these sort of very different geographical and cultural areas sort of influence other seemingly unrelated cultures, and or like bleed into art in little interesting ways. So that I found charming. But yeah, overall didn't really do a whole lot for me. But yeah, we'll see what else is out there. All right, it is another day and another genre or two to explore. This one's gonna be Balinese Gamelan. Not a clue. It's under my classical heading, so I don't really listen to classical. I've never really known how to get into classical, and I usually prefer music that's more grassroots, if you want to put it that way. Whereas with classical, you have to have access to a lot of resources, aside from, you know, the odd artist here and there like Moondog. With all the different renditions of each piece, I never really know which recording to listen to. But I guess this is an excuse to find out how to search for and listen to classical music. Alright, and it looks like somebody who I follow on Rate Your Music has already given this a 5 out of 10, which is funny. I don't know why, but we're gonna be listening to Gamelan of Peliatan, Dancers of Bali. It was originally printed on vinyl in 1952. Oh my god. I'm glad I recorded that. I just found a okay, I just found a YouTube video of Dancers of Bali. And the moment I click on it, it's like a loud bell hit or some cymbal hit or drum hit or something. Just a very just YouTube auto played it and gave me just an immediate jump scare, so we're off to a great start. I mean, it's grabbed my attention already, apparently. So that was something. So I can best describe it, what I listened to, which was Dances of Bali, as blood pressure raising music. A lot of it just sounded like somebody beating the ever-living crap out of a bunch of chimes like it slept with their girl. I mean, that being said, there were some like very musical parts that showed a tremendous degree of skill. There's no denying that there's skill, like displays of skill just all throughout the recording, but a lot of it just sounded like, well, it didn't just sound like, it was somebody beating a bunch of chimes as hard and as quickly as they could. I mean, I can't really say that it gripped me emotionally, but it definitely gripped me physiologically. I genuinely think I need to go meditate for a bit to bring my blood pressure down, but it was an experience, that's for sure. And we'll go on to the next one. Hopefully it'll be whatever genre I have next is going to be a little bit more relaxing. And we are about to check out some Chechen folk. Being the genre, not checking out Chechen people. Well, I guess in a roundabout way we're kind of doing that, but you know what I mean. Alright, and Chechen folk, a derivative of Caucasian folk music. Finally, music for my people. We are going to check out Zura by Ensemble Aznak. It's a neat little sketched album art. I appreciate that. Looks like it's released in 2001. An hour and change. That is a shrill voice. Pussy? So based on my searching for translations, I can only really get little bits and pieces of the music. It just seems like they're kind of just talking generally about Islam and Chechnya, neither of which I really know much about, and unfortunately without any sort of translations I'm not really able to learn a whole lot more about it through this. It's kind of just, you know, there's not really much I can glean from what I'm hearing right now, unfortunately. I mean, I'll keep giving it a shot and see if, you know, anything here speaks to me, but I don't know. I just unfortunately can't really connect with it personally, so, you know. Clearly it means something to other people, and I'm sure it is important to other people, but yeah, for me, unfortunately, I'm not really getting anything from it. I don't think it's helped by my headphones, but I wish that mandolin, which I'm reading, is a mandolin. That's cool. But then it kind of gets swallowed by the vocals, which kind of occupy a similar register and kind of drowns it out. But I want to hear more of the mandolin. That sounds really cool. Like, really rapid. Like the mandolin is like pulsing. That's interesting effect. Alright, so I just got done with Ensemble Aznax Zura, which unfortunately I wasn't really able to get much out of it. There's some bits where the instrumentals are really cool, but it's really just drowned out by the singing, because it's a very vocally focused record, and the vocals that are featured are very powerful, which I appreciate, but at the same time I'm unfortunately not able to really find much translation for the vocals, for better or for worse, and there's not really a whole lot for me to grab from the instrumentals. So yeah, unfortunately it's a pretty cut and dry case of it's just not for me, but we'll see what else the different genres have in store for me. I finally have some proper good headphones before I get into the last genre in this sort of early experiment. My thoughts on ambient noise wall. I thought it was really interesting. I listened to it at quite a low volume, which I felt like might be how it was meant to be listened to. It sounded like the way it was recorded was taking natural sounds for the most part and using an extremely sensitive mic so that those sounds were highly amplified, and at some points that caused some sort of like peaking and noise effects, but when it was more so just kind of amplifying these ambient noises, like rain or fire crackling, things like that, I thought it was quite pleasant. But the sort of more dissonant and noisy parts of, you know, the ambient noise wall, those sort of degraded the overall enjoyment of the atmosphere for me. But it was an interesting art piece, so yeah, I'd actually be interested to hearing more of it, even though it wasn't exactly my go-to for that sort of music. But you know, we'll see what else is out there. And for the last of the 10 genres, I'll listen to some dance punk. I think I might be familiar with this. I've listened to like LCD Sound System, which wasn't really my bag, to be honest. I get why a lot of other people enjoy it more than me. And I believe I've enjoyed Liars before. I think they're dance punk, but we'll see what else is out there to represent the dance punk genre. So it looks like, just sort of scrolling through my list here, that dance punk doesn't really exist as its own independent genre. It's always sort of blended with something else, but it is, or it seems to be, a direct derivative of post-punk, so I'll just have to look for something with both the post-punk and the dance punk primary tags, which it looks like it comes to a band called Gang of Four. That name seems familiar, and we're going to listen to the album Entertainment. This came out in '79, and I haven't heard it before. Okay, that's quite the provocative album art. I'm kind of excited to listen to this, because it seems like it is pretty popular and significant album that I am fairly uninitiated with, which is a little bit surprising, because my musical background is, you could say it was sort of founded in punk. My dad was an old school punk, so of course I was very much initiated into the sort of underground, kind of grimy, hardcore punk scene. But I'm not super familiar with this, so yeah, I'm enthused to check it out here and see what I'm gonna be getting myself into. Oh. I haven't heard guitars like that before. That's super cool. It's so like messy and offbeat, but at the same time so like tight and precise. That's so cool. Live chair reaction while I sort some laundry. That was awesome. I hope for more like that. It was so like loud and angular and weird. That was sick though. Don't know if it's the new headphones or if this is a remastered version or something, but like this is like a really crisp recording. Very well produced. Especially since it feels like unorthodox too. Like these guitars just feel so like brittle. This guitar is just really good. It's like messy, but so tight when it wants to be. Which almost makes it have like a kind of like live feeling to it. Every one of these songs is so like tight, concise. Usually I don't read lyrics while I go for a first listen. I usually just like to kind of sit with the music, but I mean, unless something goes horribly wrong in the last 2/3 of this album, I'm gonna be listening to this again, so I'll definitely get into these lyrics eventually. When you think it's like the most derivative song on here, it throws you for some loops in the last half. Oh, that's awesome. Reminds me a lot of like a cross between like Television and the Minutemen. Ooh. That's a cool way to end it. All right, so yeah, I definitely see why so many people kind of love, well, that record, "Entertainment" by Gang of Four, which is kind of prime punk, really. Not a whole lot I feel that I can add to that sort of discussion. The guitars were so like, they were very dry, but they weren't thin. There was a lot of space, which made the sort of moments where they really pop feel a lot stronger. There was a good sense of dynamics throughout it. Yeah, I think I really need to listen to more dance punk. But this is certainly an album that I'll revisit. Now we get to the sort of crux of this experiment. I have listened to 10 different randomly selected genres. My original proposition here was on the forums of Rate Your Music. I made a thread asking about, if people have really listened to all of the genres and that the sheer number of genres feels far too overstated. Like a lot of the genres aren't really real, or they don't need to be a separate genre, or they don't need to be a new genre. It's kind of just way overinflated. Unfortunately, after only listening to 10 of supposedly thousands of genres, I feel like I might not be closer to that answer, but I do have a sort of idea of somewhat of a worry that I had about such a project, which is that some of the more obscure and niche genres, there's a certain level of novelty to it, or a certain cultural barrier where I'm not really able to maybe appreciate some of the music in the same way that I would, appreciate, for instance, the album that I just listened to there, Entertainment by Gang of Four, where I have to kind of almost put myself in a different sort of headspace, I suppose, to enjoy certain kind of I suppose novel would be a good word to use, more like novel genres for me. That being said, it encourages me to learn more about other cultures, because when I'm listening to one of these, kind of strange, or not even necessarily strange, one of these kind of specific regional genres, like Musica Lubnaya, butchered that pronunciation, I apologize, listen to something like that, or even like Balinese Gamelan, whatever, however you pronounce it. It makes me sort of curious about, I suppose, geosocial, if that's a word, influences go into creating that sort of music. But on the other side, I worry that maybe the genres that people sort of come to know, the sort of, I guess, surface, more broad, popular genres, are by nature going to end up being the, I suppose, the best genres. Like, I'm sure if you, look at the genres of all the best, sort of most critically acclaimed records out there, you're probably going to recognize what genre it's from. I'm not expecting, any of these hyper niche, hyper specific regional genres to really be, going toe to toe with, I don't know, like a King Crimson or something like that. But maybe the reason I have that sort of, maybe it's a prejudice, is that because of the nature of some more obscure music, it is, well, just that, obscure, so it won't get the same sort of recognition. But overall, this sort of project ultimately sort of made me search music to sort of expand my horizons, because I feel like I sometimes get locked into my own kind of little spaces in terms of genre, which is, you know, natural for just about anybody who listens to music or, you know, enjoys any sort of media. They kind of figure out what they like. I remember when I was first getting into music, I listened pretty much primarily or only to thrash, and it wasn't until later that I ended up kind of branching out and realizing there's a lot of other music that I was missing out on that ended up becoming extremely impactful and enriching for me. So I still would be interested in continuing this project. Maybe it's a sunk cost, but overall it was something that I enjoyed, and although I have a backlog of other music that I still need to catch up on, this might be something that I want to continue. Learn more about all the different genres that are out there, and whether or not there needs to be so many different genres, because I do have a feeling that still that some of these genres don't really need to exist as a separate entity. I still do believe that some genres try to break off into too many places just to sound like, oh, it's something new and, you know, so different, and oh, I have this, you know, such a refined palette that I can tell the differences between these little niche genres, but where they could just be better described in more simpler terms. That genres are just, well, the sort of micro genres, if you want to call them that, are just too hyper specific to the point where they kind of lose their meaning, they lose their purpose. Like a genre is supposed to describe what a piece of art is, and if it is being broken down into such specific pieces that it fails to be a reasonable descriptor, then what is the point in determining it to be this completely separate genre in the first place, when it could be better described underneath a different umbrella? Maybe if I listen to more of these genres, that could change, but I think if I keep continuing to yap, I will be here forever. So I'm just gonna end it here. Leave a comment or a reply on an unlocked forum thread that I post this to, or you know, drop a comment. Just let me know what your sort of impressions are. If I'm just yapping, if you think all of, you know, my reactions and my sort of thesis is bullshit and that I'm a moron, then, you know, that's your prerogative, man. And yeah, I'm just gonna cap this off here.